I've been doing a ton of testing on the update 50 PTS. Right now it's week 4, so things can totally change, but I just wanted to have a discussion and talk through where I think each DPS class is going to land. This isn't for solo content or random normal dungeons. I'm mainly talking about organized groups, trifecta groups, things like that, even prog groups. I also don't think scorepush meta and prog meta are always in the same conversation. At the very top end, this patch I think is going to get pretty narrow on what DD classes get played. But in real progression, safe and repeatable damage matters. So this isn't really a tier list, it's more about what I think actually gets played and what I'm personally considering as a parse DD going into update. So again, I'm recording this before week 5 PTS patch, and Zos has already said that more changes are coming, so don't lock this in, but I wanted to get the conversation rolling. Here's what I think the big picture is. Nightblade and Necro look like the real damage winners. Sorc has insane signal target, but is very conditional. DK is playable, but probably doesn't scale into optimized raids as well as people expect. Arc is still the safe and prog-friendly option, but lower damage. Templar is sadly underwhelming, and Warden can parse better than I expected, but it's not going to be strong in raid. Let's start with the class I've missed the most, Sorc. Sorc's my favorite class in ESO. It was my main for years, and I've missed it badly. In Update 50, Sorc looks strong, but complicated. The big flashy setup is static reverb with Monolith and Huntsman, and that build is an absolute single target monster. The dummy numbers are insane, the burst is insane, power overload absolutely nukes if you can show up to a fight with full ultimate, but that's part of the problem. A lot of the Sorc ceiling is tied to conditions that are not always realistic in trials. Having 500 ult ready for every important boss full is not always going to happen, especially in a prog. And on top of that, raid leads may want at least one Sorc running calculated defense if they don't have their tank running that or something already, instead of static reverberation. So yes, Sorc can do damage, but the best Sorc parses right now look a lot better than they're actually going to look in raid. The other option I've seen out there is the double pet, Monolith, and Signet setup. That one feels more realistic for organized trials, but the damage ceiling is a lot lower. So my quick take on Sorc is this: it's explosive, it's fun, it's my favorite. It has crazy single target, frags are awesome, but it's probably more conditional than Nightblade and Necro. In actual top end groups, it might end up being more of a parse or specific fight pick than a default stacked DPS class. I'll probably end up doing a full Sorc deep dive video because there's a lot more to say there, but let's move on to Dragonknight. Dragonknight's pretty weird right now. On the surface, DK still feels good, whips feel good, the rotation's still solid. Pyrebrand got buffed and then immediately nerfed, and I'm hopeful it'll get another buff. If you love DK and update 49, you can absolutely still play DK, it's just not going to be the top end damage. This is where dummy parses get a little misleading and nuanced. DK doesn't benefit as much as some of the other classes from the buffs that are missing on the trial dummy. Meanwhile, something like Necro benefits massively from things like Tongue, Status Knife, Stagger, because of how the damage multipliers and additives all work. So Necro might go from around 200k on a dummy right now to something way higher in a fully optimized raid environment, and DK might go from 180 to just a tick higher than that really in raid, and that's a big deal. And honestly, those missing buffs on the trial dummy, I don't think the devs really even understand how dramatic missing those buffs really is for understanding dummy parses. So DK, not great, playable, pretty mid. Definitely going to be a support option for Zen Kosh or Zen War Machine, but not going to be the parse TD. It just doesn't keep up. Talking about keeping up, Necro. Necro got some really nice buffs, and honestly, this class hits hard now, especially AoE. A lot of the huge dummy parses are using Pummeling Goliath with the double bash weave, which is basically light attack skill, bash bash, light attack skill, bash bash. And honestly, I'm not super great at that yet. It takes practice. But if you can execute it consistently, it adds a ridiculous amount of damage, around 20k DPS or more. But the thing about Necro is that you don't even need Goliath to be really good. Even without that, the class still has strong AoE, strong scaling, and damage that'll actually translate to real content. So if you don't want to deal with the Goliath bash weave, you can still slot another ult and go ham. That's why Necro is one of the biggest winners to me. It has an incredibly high ceiling that's skill-based, but it doesn't feel like the class falls apart if you're not playing the absolute sweatiest version of it. This is probably the class I'm leaning towards maining, unless my raid leads let me grief for single target Sorc. Necro seems fun, it's going to be good. I'll probably do a deeper dive on this one too. Then Arcanist. Arcanist is interesting because I think it's heavily dependent on what kind of group you're in. Scattering got a big buff and now generates Crux when you proxy. So most of the time, you'll only need to flail once before casting a full 3 Crux Beam, and that just feels nice. Arc still has great upfront AoE burst. It's comfortable, it's safe, pragmatic. Fate Carver shield still makes it super forgiving to do a lot of damage, and for progression, that really matters. If your group is trying to get consistent pulls and survive mechanics, Arc still makes a lot of sense. But if we're talking about absolute top-end DPS, Arc's not it. It's safe, it's comfortable, it probably clears content, but damage-wise, it looks lower on the totem pole compared to Nightblade and Necro. So my quick take is Arc is still prog friendly, but probably not the top-end damage answer. Templar, I'm hopeful that this changes next week. Templar got no favors this update, and that sucks because historically it's been one of my favorite rotations in the game. Jabs and sweeps are so fun. The execute damage will still be there, but outside of execute, Templar just feels underwhelming. I don't think this is getting much use in top-end sweaty raid environments as it stands right now. And yes, of course, you can probably still use a pure Templar in sweaty raids, but that's not really the point. The question is whether organized groups have a reason to bring it over Nightblade, Necro, or a Sorc even, or an Arc. And right now, I don't think they do. Hopefully Zos gives it another pass. Nightblade. Nightblade is probably the real winner of Update 50. Even after the Week 2 PTS nerf, the single target damage still looks crazy. And unlike some of the other huge parse setups, Nightblade feels like the one that transfers most naturally into real raid environments. The AoE is also a touch better than Sorc, not a ton. Mostly just because you can run Aegis Caller really well. Now personally, this is not my favorite rotation. You have to track a lot of timers, but honestly, everything feels easier than current subclass Ardent Flame, Assassination, Herald of the Tome, Runeblade stuff. What a mess. And I actually think Nightblade being this strong is healthy. It's harder. It's a harder rotation. It's higher CPM. It asks more from the player. So if someone masters it, the damage should be high. That feels better to me than the easiest class also being the best damage. The only thing I think Nightblade is really missing is that great AoE ultimate. Incap's obviously amazing for single target, but if you need AoE ult value, you're usually looking at like sliding a different kind of ult like Shooting Star or something else. And that's just not as good as, you know, it's been with Shifting Standard or Languid. But even with that weakness, Nightblade still looks like the most naturally transferable top-end DPS class right now. If I was going into a serious parse group tomorrow, this is probably the first class I'd be jumping on to practice. All right, Warden. Warden's probably my least played DPS class, so I won't pretend I'm an expert here. And this is one I've kind of gone back and forth on, trying to really understand it. At first, I thought Warden might be more legit than I expected because I started seeing some pretty crazy parses on PTS. But the more I looked into it, the less convinced I am about it. It's parsing really well, but Warden still has questions around its sustain, its burst, ultimate value compared to the classes above it. So even if dummy numbers are better than expected, I don't know that it gives organized raid groups a strong reason to bring a Warden over something else like a Nightblade or a Necro. Now, for Warden mains, I don't think that means the class is dead. If you love Warden, you can probably make it work in plenty of content. But if we're talking about what serious raid groups are going to actually prioritize, I'm not convinced Warden is high on that list. Also, I still can't get past the noise Ares Cry makes. Oh, I can't do it, man. So my final thoughts, Update 50 is in a really interesting spot. It completely flips the meta on its head. And again, this is before Week 5 PTS patch, so I'm not treating any of this as final. I'll try to update in the coming weeks. But as things currently stand, I think the answer changes depending on what type of group you're talking about. And if we're talking about absolute top-end score push groups, I think the meta is pretty narrow. You're probably looking at Nightblade and Necro DDs, one DK in more of a support damage role, and maybe a Sorc for just parsing on very specific single target fights. But for progression groups, the conversation opens up a lot. Arc still has a real argument to be the safest, most repeatable damage. Sorc can still be strong if the fight and group allow it. DK is still playable, even if I don't think it scales well enough to be top-end DPS. Warden's probably workable, but I don't see a strong reason to prioritize it, and Templar just feels behind. The biggest takeaway is that dummy parses are not the full story. Movement matters, utility matters, survivability matters, ults matter, sustain matters, burst matters, group scaling matters. There's way more I could say about all these classes, especially Sorc, Necro, and Nightblade. So if you want deeper breakdowns on specific builds, subclass setups, rotations, or just what I think about ESO stuff, let me know which class you want to hear about first. Let me know what you're testing, what you're liking. If I missed anything big, didn't even talk about werewolves. They've been going crazy up and down on the PTS. Don't know where that's going to land. So for more in-game discussions, make sure to subscribe. Thanks, everybody. Peace.